And so far, we have made some progress, but we do not yet have any use of this heat, although I think we are pretty close in Switzerland, close to the city of Basel, and also in Australia. And then we have geopressurized systems. These are hot water, huge volumes of hot water in sedimentary basins. Maybe the biggest example is in the south of Texas, around the Gulf of Mexico, where everything is subsiding. And on the geological time scale, we accumulate sediments. And the pore water in the sediments just goes down with the sediments, and gradually they become heated up. And it's the load of the sediments. They will at least try to compress the fluid a little bit. So when you drill, you get like an artesian well. So this is geopressurized. It is overpressured fluid in it due to the load of the overlying sediments. In America, people were really interested in this because some of these sediments, they contain natural gas. So you could produce both natural gas and hot water from this, but for some reason that I do not know of, there is no exploitation so far of this resource. And then we have magma tap system, which is simply making use of heat in magma lakes. This has not been realized either, but in Iceland we have used heat from a new lava. It lasted for 15 years. So these are basically the types of geothermal systems that we have. I will only show you one simplified scheme of the most commonly used type of a geothermal system, the volcanic geothermal system. So this is a simplified section through it. It is really based on many systems that you have on converging plate boundaries. Does everybody know plate tectonics? No. Certainly if you have a background in geology. But this is like the ring of fire around the Pacific. And there you have magma intrusions that may consolidate at high levels in the crust where it is already brittle, where it can fracture to give you permeability. And basically the way people envisage this is you have meteoric water coming from the surface, seeping deep down, shown by the arrows, towards the magma body. It doesn't quite reach the magma, although it gets very close. And we have two steps really in the heat transfer from the magma, and one is through a relatively thin layer above the magma where the heat is transferred by conduction through this layer. And then at the top of this layer, this is the bottom of the circulation of the fluid, and then the heat is transferred through the conductive layer and into the fluid. The fluid is heated up, it expands and rises, may get all the way to the surface. It may not go all the way to the surface. It may run off subsurface, so you don't see anything. But this fluid will then carry the heat from the magma further up into the crust. And what this vertical movement of the fluid will do is it will heat up the the rock at shallow crustal levels and by the heat that originally comes from the magma. And this is what we usually call a hydrothermal system, the top of it, where we have a thermal anomaly. The rock at shallow depths are hotter than away from our geothermal system by the vertical ascent, or more or less vertical ascent of the heated fluid. People have been calculating this, not only people in working on geothermal, but also a lot of people who are working on metamorphic rocks. And what always comes out is this layer is very thin. It's only maybe some tens of meters, 50 meters, 100 meters. It's a thin layer between magma and the fluid. So because of this and what we have seen from deep drillings is that the gases that are in the magma, they escape into the roof rock, if you like. They dissolve in the fluid. And some of these gases, in particularly hydrochloric acid, HCl, also sulfur dioxide, when they dissolve in water, they make acids. So the fluid here towards the bottom may be acidic. And there have been problems in using this acidic fluid because it's very corrosive. People have been successful in a few places, but unfortunately, the outcome most often is people just give in. And the money they put into drilling these deep wells that struck acidic fluids, sunk costs, but not something that you profit from. What happens, I don't know if you'll be traveling much about Iceland, but I will show it very briefly here. What happens when this hot water, if it is above 100, rises toward the surface, then it will start to boil. So then we have two phases, liquid water ascending together with some steam or vapor. And very often the liquid water may be running off below the surface because the groundwater table is below the surface. So all you see then on the surface is steam vents. And you have your acidic gases in the steam. So you get a lot of alteration at the surface. And if you visit some of these fields in Iceland or anywhere else, this is what strikes the eye, to see the fumaroles and to see the intensive alteration at the surface. Different colors where the ground is hot. And this is the acids that really dissolve the rock and produce all kind of alteration products. Now, generally speaking, the processes that make this kind of alteration on the surface of these systems, they are basically the same as the weathering processes when you produce a laterite soil. You dissolve most things away, you just leave a residue of compounds that make very insoluble minerals under acidic conditions. Now a little bit about the use of geothermal resources. I just spoke what was geothermal heat before and about geothermal systems. So the number is maybe a little higher. There was a big meeting in Bali last month, and there are updates then. Unfortunately for your lecture, I didn't have time to update my slides to see what it was like at the end of 2009. But there has been quite a lot of geothermal development in many places in the world during the last 5 years. But in 2005, this is how much we had